Even if you only became a fan of hockey in the last few decades, you're probably still aware of what went down in the 80s, over 40 years ago. This was the NHL's watershed era, when the sport itself broke out and became must-watch entertainment, drawing in new fans and converting existing ones into lifelong addicts. The legacy of the 80s is still strong today, and its legendary players still stand out as some of the most significant, iconic, and influential players to have ever graced our screens across any sport. There were dominant dynasties, epic rivalries, a newfound global intrigue, and changes to the sport that have impacted how it is played today. So, to fully understand the greatest era in NHL history, let's go back and relive each season of the 1980s. I guess it should come as no surprise that this oh-so-glorious era just so happens to begin with the arrival of a certain Wayne Gretzky. He certainly plays a big part in why the 1980s were so special, but he's not the only significant skater who played a role. In fact, the arrival of Gretzky into the NHL happened as part of one of the most significant moments in the history of professional hockey. You see, the World Hockey Association, which had operated in competition to the NHL since 1971, had finally succumbed to its older rival league and agreed to fold after the conclusion of the 1978-79 season. As part of this, 4 of its teams, the Edmonton Oilers, New England Whalers, Quebec Nordiques, and Winnipeg Jets, all made the transition from the WHA into the NHL, raising the league to 21 teams. As everybody tried to adjust to this new look landscape in professional hockey, the traditional playoff structure was suspended, instead seeding teams 1 to 16 league-wide, without divisional constraints. On top of this, the 1979-80 season would be the first in which helmets were mandatory for players, while the 1979 draft would see the minimum draft age be lowered from 20 to 19. That might not sound like much, but it had a huge impact on the talent available, essentially packing 2 draft classes into one. And what a cohort of talent the lucky teams at the top had to choose from. In total, there were 7 Hall of Famers from the 1979 entry draft, including Ray Bourque, Mike Gartner, Michel Goulet, Kevin Lowe, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, and Guy Carbonneau. The great Wayne Gretzky wasn't actually available in the draft, as he had been protected by the Edmonton Oilers in the 1979 expansion draft. But he also, of course, went to the Hall of Fame. There were many who believed Gretzky would not hold up in the more physical and talented NHL due to his small and skinny stature. However, those doubts were put immediately to rest when he sniped 51 goals, tying Marcel Dion for the scoring lead with 137 points. Gretzky's success in his first year in the NHL reflected a new era of hockey. Stick handling and quick transitions were about to separate the elite new offensive stars from the old guard of bruisers and grinders. While it was Ray Bourque who earned the honor of winning the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie, mainly because Gretzky was ineligible, the Canadian legend did get the honor of being crowned the NHL's most valuable player, winning the Hart in his first year in the NHL. In doing so, he kick-started an insane run of 8 straight Hart trophies. While Gretzky was kicking off his dazzling career in Edmonton, it was actually a different team altogether who were gearing up for an impressive run of their own. The New York Islanders, after 5 seasons of falling just short, they were crowned Stanley Cup champions. Brian Trottier was named playoff MVP, winning the Conn Smythe, reminding everyone that he was very much still up there as one of the league's best players. Gretzky was undoubtedly the exciting new arrival, but Trottier was about to embark on an utterly epic run with his Islanders that would continue well into the 80s. The 1980-81 season kicked off with the first relocation of the decade, with the Atlanta Flames moving north to become the Calgary Flames. Doug Wickenheiser was the first overall pick in the draft, but it was 3rd overall selection Dennis Savard and 6th overall pick Paul Coffey who turned out to be the savviest selections, with the latter going on to revolutionize what it meant to be an NHL defenseman. 2,500 fans watched those 3, and many more young players fulfill their dreams of going pro in what was the first ever draft made open to the public. The arrival of Gretzky in 1979 had teased a new, high-scoring NHL, which came into full force in 1980. The Great One shattered records by recording 109 assists and 164 points, earning himself his second straight Hart Trophy. Meanwhile, over on Long Island, Mike Bossy did his best to challenge the league's newest star by matching Maurice "Rocket" Richard's legendary 50-50 record, doing so by scoring a dramatic 2 late goals in the all-important 50th game. This made Bossy only the second ever player to achieve the remarkable 50 goals in 50 games feat. With Gretzky and Bossy lighting up the scoreboard and breaking records, fans were being treated to hockey of the highest order. But it wasn't just them. The average goals scored by all 21 teams that season was 307.5. In comparison, 10 years later, in the 1990-91 season, that would drop all the way down to 276.4 goals per team. That's 31 fewer goals per team in a season, showing just how prolific the scoring was in this epic 1980-81 season. And boy, did it set the tone for a wild decade ahead. More on that later. In the 1980-81 playoffs, the Stanley Cup went to the New York Islanders for the second straight season, with center Butch Goring earning the Conn Smythe Trophy. While there was little surprise in seeing these guys reign supreme again, there was a pleasant surprise story playing out 1,300 miles to the east. In Minnesota, a 35-win Minnesota North Stars roster executed an almost perfect Cinderella story by downing several heavy favorites to reach their first ever Stanley Cup. Unfortunately, this ended 4-1 in favor of the Islanders. Elsewhere, Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers hinted at big things to come by delivering a dramatic underdog victory of their own, sweeping the mighty Montreal Canadiens, a dynasty of the 1970s. The Islanders were still very much the top dogs, but signs of future contenders were beginning to emerge. The 1981-82 season was when the NHL finally returned to its more traditional playoff structure, scrapping the 1-16 playoff format and reorganizing to logically match the geography of the league. This was also the year that goaltenders were given a bit of love, in the form of the William M. Jennings Trophy, awarded to the goaltenders on the team with the lowest goals against average. Ironically, there wasn't much fun to be had for the goalies beyond that, as the season that followed still stands as the highest scoring NHL season since the expansion. 4.01 goals were scored per game on average in 1981-82, meaning goalies really did have their work cut out. Of course, Gretzky played a huge part in this. The remarkable 50 goals in 50 games record set by Maurice Richard 35 years earlier and tied by Mike Bossy in 1980-81 was destroyed by Gretzky in 1981-82. He netted his 50th goal in just 39 games, en route to another record-shattering 92 goals on the season. The previous record was 76, held by Phil Esposito. After becoming the only player in NHL history to break the 200-point mark with 212, Gretzky was undoubtedly now the biggest star in the sport, winning his third straight Hart Trophy and becoming the first hockey player and Canadian to be named Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year. Scoring really was at an all-time high, with Mike Bossy quietly setting a scoring record for right-wingers with 147 points, and Dennis Merrick netting 60 goals of his own for Washington. In total, there were 10 players who scored 50 or more goals on the season. Powered on by Gretzky's dominance, the Edmonton Oilers posted a record-breaking 417 goals, which led them to a 48-win season, a vast improvement from the 29 wins they posted in 1980-81. And, on the topic of turnarounds, an 18-year-old Dale Hawerchuk tallied 45 goals and 103 points to secure the Calder Trophy. In doing so, he helped Winnipeg improve by 48 points year over year, which was the biggest one-year turnaround in NHL history at the time. It's fair to say the NHL's youth movement was now in full swing, and points were not at all hard to come by. In the playoffs, Gretzky and the Oilers were sent packing in round 1 by the LA Kings, who pulled off the miracle in Manchester to get the job done. There were no such scares for the Islanders, though, who steamrolled their way to a 3rd consecutive cup. The dynasty was very much motoring along, and it didn't appear that teams had answers for the powerhouse Isles. The 1982-83 season opened with a bust of a draft pick, with the Boston Bruins spending their valuable first overall selection on Gord Kluzak, who would go on to score just 7 points over 70 games in his first NHL season. Kluzak would go on to play just 299 career games, while players like Scott Stevens and Phil Housley, drafted shortly after, turned into Hall of Famers for their teams. The best value, though, came all the way down at pick 134, when Doug Gilmour was taken by the St. Louis Blues. Gilmour went on to play 1,474 games, racking up 1,414 points in total, as another Hall of Fame talent. Despite whiffing on their first overall pick, Boston still managed to post the best record that year with an impressive 50 wins, 20 losses, and 10 ties. Goaltender Pete Peters was on fire all year, delivering 8 shutouts to go along with his remarkable 40 wins. That's a mighty fine effort, considering how dominant offensive play was at the time. And he wasn't the only goalie to shine bright with the odds stacked against him. After reaching their 4th consecutive Stanley Cup final, it was a masterclass by goalie Billy Smith that pinched Conn Smythe honors away from the team's other veteran stars, Brian Trottier and Mike Bossy. His .953 save percentage across that final series speaks for itself, helping the Islanders sweep their way to a 4th straight Stanley Cup. And who would be on the receiving end of that dominant sweep? None other than Wayne Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers. After showing signs of playoff potential for years, the Oilers had finally broken through to reach the Stanley Cup final for the first time. Obviously, Gretzky played his part in helping them get there by once again leading the NHL in most major categories to win another Hart Trophy. Glenn Anderson and Mark Messier also featured heavily, but this season also marked the beginning of the rise of Jari Kurri, who kick-started a run of 5 straight 100-plus point seasons. Unfortunately for the Oilers, they were embarrassed on the NHL's biggest stages, in the form of that 4-0 series sweep. The New York Islanders were certainly now acknowledged as a truly epic dynasty, but with Gretzky, Kurri, Anderson, and Messier all aged just 22 years old, the Oilers were looking dangerous. 1983 would mark the arrival of a very significant rule change: regular season overtime. Just like playoff games, regular season games that were tied at the end of regulation would now go to a 5-minute sudden death period in an attempt to create more drama and reduce the number of ties. Over in St. Louis, drama was brewing, with owner Ralston Purina attempting to sell the team and relocate it to Saskatoon. Not best pleased with the idea of a team going to a tiny prairie town with a population of 160,000 people at the time, the NHL Board of Governors intervened and blocked the move. In protest, the Blues even sat out the 1983 draft, becoming the first and only team in NHL history to not participate. Alas, it made no difference, with the team eventually being sold to a new owner in the St. Louis area. In the draft, Brian Lawton went first overall, but he was significantly overshadowed by 4 Hall of Famers in the top 10, in the form of Pat LaFontaine, Steve Yzerman, Tom Barrasso, and Cam Neely. On the ice, the Edmonton Oilers, now hardened after their Stanley Cup loss, ran away with the best record in the NHL, setting a new team scoring record for the 3rd straight year with 446 goals in 80 games. Wayne Gretzky was now captain, and also at the peak of his powers, tallying 205 points to win his 5th straight Hart Trophy. Even the Oilers' defensemen were getting in on the scoring fun, with Paul Coffey becoming just the 2nd defenseman in NHL history to score 40 goals. This is the perfect example of how the game was changing, with skill and creativity now at a premium at all positions, with everybody expected to contribute towards offensive opportunities. The New York Islanders, along with the previous season's top regular season team, the Boston Bruins, were in hot pursuit of the rampaging Oilers. But with Gretzky's squad racking up 57 wins, the once dominant Islanders dynasty had never looked more vulnerable. New York did make it to the Stanley Cup Finals to try and win a remarkable fifth in a row, aided by another stellar 51-goal effort by Mike Bossy, but this time it was the youngsters who ruled supreme. Mark Messier received the Conn Smythe for his 3 goals and 1 assist throughout the finals, which helped topple the Islanders in 5 games. The frenzy that surrounded Gretzky and the Oilers' first title brought far more attention to hockey as a sport, just in time for an epic second half of the 1980s. The aura of the Great One was enough to propel hockey into the mainstream alone, but in 1984, he was joined by another new superstar who would help take things even further. Mario Lemieux was the highly anticipated first overall selection in the 1984 entry draft, heading to the Pittsburgh Penguins as a 19-year-old phenom. Expectations for Lemieux were sky high, but not even his most optimistic fans could have anticipated how his career would begin. On his first ever shift, Lemieux stole the puck from Hall of Famer Ray Bourque and lit the lamp with his first ever shot. This set the tone for a superb 100-point season, consisting of 43 goals and 57 assists, which was enough to secure him the Calder Trophy. On top of that, Lemieux became the first rookie ever to be named All-Star Game MVP. Offense remained king in the 1984-85 season, with Gretzky topping the 200-point mark for the 3rd time in his career with 208. The next best in the NHL was none other than his teammate Jari Kurri, who had an impressive, albeit significantly lower, points total of 135. Despite the point-scoring prowess of the Oilers, it was actually the Philadelphia Flyers who enjoyed the best regular season record, as the only team with over 50 wins with 53. They scored 53 fewer goals, but still bested the Oilers, and it was these two teams who met in the 1985 Stanley Cup Final. Benefiting from home ice advantage, it was the Flyers who captured Game 1 with a 4-1 victory. Any concerns of an Oilers flop were quickly disbanded, though, as Gretzky began his takeover in Game 2, propelling the Oilers to 4 straight wins and a 2nd straight Stanley Cup victory. His 7 goals and 4 assists in the finals made Gretzky an easy choice for the Conn Smythe, adding yet another dazzling accolade to his glittering career. Over the course of the 1985 playoffs as a whole, Gretzky set a still-standing playoff record of 47 points, while Jari Kurri tied the single postseason goals record with 19. By now, the NHL was a regular fixture on cable TV, and expansions were a regular topic of conversation. Such was the rise of hockey in the mainstream media that Gretzky and his Oilers were often featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated, which was an honor rarely afforded to hockey teams at the time. Off the back of 2 Stanley Cup wins, the Oilers were clearly the dominant team of the mid-1980s. But Philly and the Mario Lemieux-led Penguins were clearly teams that deserved respect. Oh, and what about another once great dynasty, the Montreal Canadiens? More on them very shortly. The 1985-86 season began with controversy, with the NHL Board of Governors implementing a rule change that meant neither team would lose a man when coincidental penalties were called. To many, this was in direct response to the Oilers' domination, who frequently capitalized on 4-on-4 or 3-on-3 situations by using the extra space to score goals. Gretzky himself criticized the rule change, and with him having been one of the main benefactors of the previous rules, this new change was dubbed the Gretzky Rule. Perhaps inspired by this new rule change, Gretzky went out and delivered his best regular season performance yet, which is saying something considering how impressive his career had already been. His 52 goals and a new NHL record 163 assists combined for a record 215 points, which still stands today. It was the 4th time in 5 years that Gretzky had topped the 200-point mark, but it was actually Jari Kurri who led the league in goals with 68. This is the perfect representation of how much Gretzky opened things up for his teammates, operating as the ultimate team player and winning an insane 7th straight Hart Trophy as a result. In doing so, Gretzky and Kurri led the Oilers to a 56-17-7 record, which earned them the first ever President's Trophy, awarded to the team with the best regular season record. Paul Coffey was also at the peak of his powers in this epic Oilers regular season effort, scoring 48 goals to break the single-season record for goals by a defenseman. Still, a 53-win effort in Philadelphia for the Flyers and 50 wins for the Washington Capitals showed that the run towards the Stanley Cup was going to be far from easy. Not to mention the Montreal Canadiens, who were clearly on the up, aided by 20-year-old goaltender Patrick Waugh, who played 47 regular season games for the Habs. As it turns out, the Canadiens had stumbled across a superstar in the making when they selected Waugh 51st overall in the 1984 NHL draft. Waugh was a revelation, and he only got better in the playoffs, helping the Montreal Canadiens reach a surprise Stanley Cup Finals, where he shone even brighter. Posting a 193 goals against average and a 923 save percentage in the playoffs, Waugh won the Conn Smythe for his role in helping the Canadiens down the Calgary Flames in 5 on their way to winning the Cup. His rise to stardom was one of the best storylines of an epic 1985-86 season, but unfortunately, there was another that brought great sadness to the league as a whole. After helping the Philadelphia Flyers rise to prominence, including capturing a Vezina Trophy the season before, Pelle Lindbergh tragically lost his life on the 10th of November 1985 in a car crash. This was a tragedy that shook the NHL, and Lindbergh's legacy was honored by fans voting him as the most popular selection for the 1986 NHL All-Star Game. The biggest change for the 1986-87 season was the NHL's decision to depart from the typical All-Star tradition, instead setting up the Rendezvous 87 clash against the Soviet Union's national team. The series was split, but this gave fans a rare opportunity to see stars like Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky team up against the world's most dominant hockey force. Back in regular NHL play, it was who else but the Edmonton Oilers who secured the President's Trophy with 106 points from a 50-24-6 record. Gretzky was still red hot, collecting 183 points and leading the NHL in goals and assists en route to his 8th straight Hart Trophy. The Calder went to LA Kings rookie Luc Robitaille, who had been drafted by the team back in 1984. Robitaille dug deep to earn the Kings a playoff spot, despite only winning 31 games in the 86-87 season, scoring 45 goals and contributing 39 assists in 79 games. In doing so, he became the first and only LA Kings player to win the award, setting up an impressive Hall of Fame career. It wasn't an easy selection for voters, though, with Robitaille having to fend off an epic opening season from goalie Ron Hextall of the Philadelphia Flyers. Hextall changed the way goaltenders were viewed, introducing a whole new, aggressive approach to playing the position. He wasn't afraid to get down and dirty, hacking and slashing at skaters in front of him, a play style that ultimately led to him setting a record for penalty minutes in a season by a goaltender, with 113. He made up for this by being not only an elite puck stopper, but also a uniquely talented stick handler. His 3.01 goals against average and 37 wins in the 1986-87 season was enough to win him the Vezina Trophy, but it wasn't quite enough to secure him the Calder Trophy. In the playoffs, the Islanders and Capitals had their endurance tested in a 7-game stunner, which culminated with the Easter epic Game 7. It took 8 minutes and 47 seconds into a 4th overtime to get the job done for the Islanders. But it was all in vain, as Hextall's Flyers dismissed them in the second round. Philadelphia made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they met the Edmonton Oilers, back after a 1-year hiatus. This series also went all the way to Game 7, but it was Gretzky's Oilers who were crowned champions. Remarkably, it was the losing goaltender, rookie Ron Hextall, who earned the Conn Smythe honors. The Edmonton Oilers were kings once again, winning their third title in 4 years. The 1987 season began with a very impressive draft, in which each of the first two selections went on to enjoy Hall of Fame careers, in Pierre Turgeon and Brendan Shanahan. Both players made an impact early for their respective teams, but it was a rookie in Calgary who stole the Calder Trophy. The Calgary Flames were a perennial contender in the mid-1980s, falling just short in 1986, but reaching at least the division semis in each of the previous 7 seasons. 51 goals from rookie Joe Nieuwendyk then made that 8 in a row, propelling the Flames to a 48, 23, and 9 record and a division finals playoff appearance. Another significant acquisition took place in Pittsburgh, this time via the trade market, with the Edmonton Oilers giving up superstar defenseman Paul Coffey in exchange for young sniper Craig Simpson. As it turns out, this trade triggered somewhat of a changing of the guard in terms of the Hart Trophy, as the presence of a Hall of Fame blue liner unleashed a whole new version of Mario Lemieux. The Penguins superstar capitalized on an injury-impacted season for Gretzky to steal the limelight, delivering a sensational, league-leading 70 goals and 168 points. The first time Art Ross and Hart Trophy winner was exceptional, confirming his status as a league-leading superstar. However, Gretzky's Oilers weren't done just yet. The Great Ones still led the league with 109 assists, despite missing 16 games, leading Edmonton to a 44, 25, and 11 record. By now, the Oilers were seasoned playoff vets, and nobody came close to toppling them. Across 4 rounds of postseason action, the Oilers never lost more than 1 game in a series, and twice didn't lose at all, including the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals. Ken Linseman and Glenn Wesley top-scored from a points perspective with 4 apiece for the Bruins, whilst Gretzky did what he did best, contributing 13 points to earn himself another Conn Smythe Trophy. When elated Oilers fans watched him lift the Stanley Cup for the 4th time, they had no idea what storm was soon approaching. More on that shortly. Elsewhere in the 1987-88 season, the New Jersey Devils finally began showing signs of relevancy, having been considered the laughingstock of the league for many years. Lou Lamoriello was brought up from the college ranks to be team president, miraculously overseeing a trip to the playoffs in his first season in charge. The Devils had failed to win more than 30 games in every season since their inception in 1974, but Lamoriello set that straight instantly and would eventually help the team win a title just 7 years later in 1995. If the 1980s were the greatest era of NHL history, then the 1988-89 season was a fitting grand finale, and the drama began instantly. The Great One, Wayne Gretzky, was traded by the Edmonton Oilers to the Los Angeles Kings in a move that stunned the hockey world and sent Oilers fans into chaos. It was reported that this came about due to financial issues for team owner Peter Pocklington, and Gretzky only agreed to it on the condition that Marty McSorley and Mike Krushelnyski joined him in LA. Oilers fans were, unsurprisingly, so mad at Pocklington that they made effigies of him and burned him to the ground. This was made worse by the fact that Gretzky led the Kings to a franchise record 91 points, scoring 168 points for himself. For his efforts, Gretzky won the Hart Trophy after a 1-year hiatus, as he improved the Kings' final win total by 12 games to post a 42, 31, and 7 record. While Gretzky regained the Hart Trophy for a 9th time, it was actually his superstar rival Mario Lemieux who earned the top spot as a scorer, netting 85 goals and 199 points, coming oh so close to becoming only the 2nd player to surpass the 200-point barrier. In reality, it was unfair that Lemieux didn't get more for his incredible statistical explosion, which included becoming the first player in NHL history to score a goal in all 5 possible game situations in one game, which he did on December 31st, 1988. Elsewhere, Brian Leetch won the Calder Trophy for his record-breaking rookie defenseman 23 goals, to go along with a very tidy 71 points. However, it was a different rookie who enjoyed ultimate glory in his 1988-89 season, offering his team an incredible midseason spark. Thierry Fleury, who measured just 5 foot 6 inches, fell all the way to 166th overall in the 1987 draft. After spending the early stages of his career in the IHL, Fleury was recalled to the Calgary Flames in 1989 in hopes that he could offer a spark to a slumping Calgary team. Remarkably, he did just that, finishing with 34 points in 36 games as a rookie and helping the Flames post an impressive 54-17-9 record. From there, 11 more postseason points from Fleury helped Calgary march all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they downed the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games. After knocking on the door so many times, this was a brilliant achievement for the Flames. But it was made even more fitting by the fact that it was the perfect farewell tour for Hall of Fame legend Lanny McDonald. In what was his last season, McDonald would score his 500th goal, 500th assist, and 1,000th point. The fact that he then secured his one and only Stanley Cup meant that an epic 1980s had the perfect happy ending. So there you have it. The 1980s were a truly golden era of NHL action, treating fans to 2 great dynasties. The great one, his superstar rival Mario Lemieux, and some of the overall greatest offensive action the sport has ever seen. The stars of the 80s still stand strong as some of the greatest and most influential to ever play the sport, shaping the way it is played today. So, do you agree the 1980s was the golden era of the NHL, or does a different decade reign supreme? Let us know in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more videos.